question that's on everybody's lips. When is the war between Russia and Ukraine going to finish?
Yeah, if we knew that one, we'd be very wise men, and I don't think we are. I think it's incredibly sensitive, and one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it today was that, however uncomfortable it is, the war will end at some stage. Will it end with one side winning? Difficult to see that. If Putin wants the whole of Ukraine, almost certainly that's not going to happen. If he gets the whole of the Donbass, he might declare victory for his special military operation, and that would stick in the throat of the West.
And that's the land corridor.
That's the Donbass, the land corridor, and Crimea.
Yeah, so that's strategically, that's very important.
Very important. So if a deal was done around that, that would effectively reward Putin for his illegal invasion and aggression, which had all sorts of implications for global security. It looks like both sides. So Russia is taking huge casualties at the moment. It's got fewer people joining than they're losing. So it's not a sustainable pace, but it looks like they're pushing really hard to try and get the last bit of the Donbass they don't have, get it this year, and then pause. But it doesn't seem they've got enough to do a strategic breakthrough, and it doesn't look like the Ukraine has for a strategic breakthrough either. So we're heading for a period of potentially stalemate for the winter. I'm not suggesting there won't be fighting go on, but now President Zelensky is busy touting the fact that he's got his victory plan. I don't know if you've read about that he's apparently 90% complete now, and he's putting the finishing touches, and he's going to be presenting it to the West next year. As a military guy, it's difficult to see what a victory plan might comprise, but he's the expert.
Whatever victory is.
Yeah, he's clearly got a plan, and that's great. Will the West's appetite for continuing to fund the war continue? We've got our own domestic priorities in this country. How long are we going to be prepared to keep funding? We want to build new hospitals, or do we continue to support the war in Ukraine?
Or pay the winter fuel allowance.
Or the winter fuel allowance. And if there's no prospect of either side significantly changing the line on the map, what's the right answer?
Well, the other thing is the politics of it. If Trump gets in November, obviously it'd be January before he actually takes over in the White House, things might change very quickly. If Kamala Harris gets in, then, it might be less decisive. I'm not saying it's for good or bad, but and some of the administration will change if Trump gets in as well. So there'd be discontinuity.
Yeah, and I think the uncomfortable bit I have about this conversation is, a week today I head off to Ukraine, and every Ukrainian you speak to says, that's up to us to decide. It's not up to you to decide. And I go, no, you're absolutely right. It's not. But in that binary world, actually, the West has a dog in the fight, because without the West's support, it would be incredibly difficult for Ukraine to prevail. And that's not a threat. It's just a harsh reality of life. And if a change of administration in the US, it could be that the tap gets turned off. If the tap was turned off, it's very difficult for the West to provide the same level of support that when we've got the US providing support as well, Europe would struggle to make up that difference. And even with all of that, Russia is still on the front foot.
Yeah. And we know that Germany is already, all but the tap's going to be turned off as well. Still the biggest economy in the EU.
I know it's a difficult one because it will inflame some of our viewers, because I believe wholeheartedly it's up to President Zelensky to decide what he wants to do. I also believe that he's not the only stakeholder, though, because he relies on the support of the West. We saw it over Christmas, New Year, that America was wobbling slightly. That $60 billion of aid that was delayed put Russia on the front foot. The politicians are still wholeheartedly behind President Zelensky, and I absolutely support that. But even with all that support, Zelensky is ceding ground at the moment on the crucial area of the Donbass. And, at some stage, the war's got to end and allow Ukraine to transition into a land where you start to rebuild again. worry about what's its long-term security going to look like, whether that's in NATO or whatever. But all those conversations can't happen until the war is brought to an end. And we're racing towards the 3-year anniversary. Took over 2.5 years now. How much longer is it going to go on with this horrible loss of life? And, I'm off to visit superhumans, aren't I, in Lviv. So a week, just over a week's time, I'll be visiting. And I know it'll be emotional because I know when I saw the impacts of our young men, predominantly our soldiers in Afghanistan who've lost an arm, a leg or more, that the profound implications for the rest of their life, the support they needed, both physical and mental. And, Lviv's they've got 100 times more casualties. That's the long-term impacts of this war. It isn't just, the war's over, let's go back to our day-to-day lives. There's a massive rebuilding, there's a massive psychological impact, massive physical impact. And then there's all these people who have left Ukraine. There's all of the people who would now have to come back. Are their homes still there? How do you rebuild your lives? So really difficult, very difficult.
And if Trump wins, just to take a slightly different tack, if Trump wins, then there'll be a certain Robert Kennedy Jr. in the government. He has big things to say about the war and its ending. He also has big things to say about the reconstruction of Ukraine. Wouldn't surprise me if Trump wins, if Kennedy is right in the middle of all of that. Very, very outspoken. He's got some very, very strong opinions. Not all of them attractive to other parts of the United States.
I know you've been a bit of a follower of him, haven't you? Not necessarily a supporter, but a follower of him. What's he positioning himself to do in the Trump administration?
Well, that's not clear, but he's well and truly put his force. He's discontinued his role in the swing states so as not to cause confusion. He's still running in the other states, which means he'll take more Democrat votes than Trump. He's got an agreement with Trump. They don't agree on everything, but they do agree on 70% of the things. And he says Trump agrees with him on all the major things, which is corruption in the nutrition industry, in the pharmaceutical industry. He wants to get America healthy again, which he says they're not at the moment. It's a very unhealthy country. But he's also got very strong opinions about the wars, plural, and the reconstruction effort and who the winners are. And I might imagine if they win, he'll somehow be in the middle of it all.
Yeah, as you say, there's a huge amount of politics that'll play. And frankly, a horrible thing to admit, but it's about $1 trillion worth of...
horrendous.
And whenever that sort of money is flowing about, business will be, lapping it up. And that will have a huge amount of political implications as well.
Yeah, too.